Imagine fighting a war against giant, stupid, flightless birds and losing twice. Welcome to Australia in 1932, when the military declared all-out war on the emus and returned home with their dignity in tatters, and the birds still strutting across the Outback like they just ate your lunch out of the company fridge and dared you to try and stop them.
Why you tripping, Debo? Shut up, fucker, I'll knock your ass out.
Oh man, that's messed up. Won't you give him back his chain?
What chain?
This is the Great Emu War, a real government-sanctioned military operation that went so spectacularly wrong that it's still used today for a metaphor for pointless battles and unstoppable chaos. Welcome to Times Crimes. All right, so let me set the stage for you here. Australia in the 1930s was a rough place. I mean, rough. The Depression had hit hard, farmers were broke, wheat prices were tanking, and veterans who were returning from World War I were struggling to survive on plots of land that they had within Western Australia. Oh, and let's not forget that both Crocodile Dundee and Kangaroo Jack weren't even around yet.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Dark times indeed. And then came the emus. Tens and thousands of them. Billions and billions of emus. And every single year after breeding season, these birds would migrate west, stomping across tons of farmland and devouring crops like a feathery locust plague on two legs. Now look, if you haven't seen a real emu in person, let me tell you, nightmare fuel. Absolutely terrifying. They're huge, they don't smell great, there's feathers just everywhere, and quite frankly, disrespectful. So the farmers started calling for help, saying their entire livelihoods were actually getting eaten alive by these birds.
Oh no! They're coming in through the back door! Oh no! Oh no!
So for once, the government listened, and naturally decided to send soldiers with machine guns. Because there's a saying where I'm from, and it's when life gives you emus, you destroy them, obliterate them. With extreme prejudice. Meet Major GPW Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery. He and his men were tasked with the operation, emu termination. So they rolled into the wheat belt armed with 2 Lewis machine guns, along with about 10,000 rounds of ammo, and the confidence that comes from having zero clue what you're up against. So day one, they spotted a mob of emus. And yes, by the way, that is exactly what a group of emus is called, a mob. Just in case you needed any more of a reason to realize that these birds are up to no good. Always. So anyway, it's perfect target practice. But the birds were faster and smarter than they expected. They started scattering into small groups the moment they started opening up with machine guns. So the soldiers, they spent hundreds and hundreds of rounds. The result? Barely any emus down. Major Meredith regrouped, basically saying, "We need to get closer." So what they decided to do was mount a machine gun on the back of one of their trucks and start chasing the birds. Yeah, like Mad Max. But unfortunately for them, the terrain was pretty bumpy and their machine gunner couldn't aim very well. Not to mention, all the birds outran the truck, and the only casualty that was suffered was the truck's suspension. Mind you, these dudes weren't running around in Ford Raptors and Toyota Land Cruisers, Toyota Hilux, nothing like that. It was essentially the automobile equivalent of sleeping on an air mattress. Zero cushion and suspension out here for the Australian military, man. Feel bad for them. Anyway, over the next few days, it just got worse.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
The emus somehow started to split into smaller, more agile groups. Somehow, even started to dodge rounds as they started coming their way. The birds basically turned into Neo from the Matrix. Now look, I don't know if that's what inspired the movie in that scene, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I wouldn't put it past Hollywood. Now, some emus did get hit. Some of the soldiers reported some of the emus actually taking rounds and just kind of, I don't know, running off. One of Meredith's men even claimed that he saw what he thought was an emu leader that was guiding flocks like a tactical general. Now, allow me to paint the picture for you. On one hand, you have a bunch of Australian Han Solos running around the Outback trying to figure out what's going on. And on the other hand, you have Darth Emu with his army of dinosaur birds running around like nothing's going on. It was a mess. One journalist who tagged along even described the operation as an unequal contest between men with machine guns and emus who could take a bullet like a sponge. That is a quote. Meanwhile, the farmers just stood by and watched their wheat vanish into emu gullets, while the army basically turned the Outback into a slapstick battlefield. By the way, if you're enjoying this look at possibly the world's dumbest war, please do me a favor, drop a like and subscribe, and we do this every week. Strange, but true stories that sound made up, but they aren't. All right, back to the story. So by mid-November, the army had fired more than 2,500 rounds. Official kill count, maybe 200 emus. And if you do the math, that's roughly, 12 rounds a bird. It wasn't great marksmanship on their behalf. So Major Meredith filed his first report. His verdict? The emus were remarkably hard to kill. Parliament, predictably, got embarrassed. And the press roasted the entire affair. The Sydney Morning Herald even read headlines about the emu commanders and essentially mocked the entire military's failure to outwit these giant, stupid, flightless birds. I don't know, can you blame them? So at this point, the government had had enough. They decided to pull the plug.
I'm done! Do what you want! Pull the plug! I'll kill you!
Soldiers withdrew. The emus just kept on marching. Farmers estimated about 20,000 emus still trampled their fields. Time out for a minute. Have y'all ever seen those videos where they do like 1,000 Harry Potters versus like 10,000 Predators or something absurd like that? I honestly think we need to do one with emus. Because if anyone has the stats and the legal documentation about how much of a unit they are on the battlefield, it's the emus. It's them. So anyway, the Great Emu War was officially lost, but the legend was just getting started. So fast forward a little bit, 1934. Farmers begged the military for a new operation. This time, the emus had returned. Somehow more organized, more brazen, and probably a little bit more cocky, to be honest with you. Basically, they made it seem like the emus were out here training in those early 2000s Al-Qaeda terrorist training camp videos. And I only make that comparison because these birds are clearly up to no good. And if any bird is going to get along with a terrorist organization, it's obviously the emus. Well, maybe the ducks too, but that's for another video. So this time, the government refused to send any troops. However, they did decide to offer a bounty system. Anybody who shot an emu could turn the beak in for cash. Now, no surprise to anybody, that motivated a couple people. And the results were more effective. Tens of thousands of emus were culled by bounty hunters. But at this point, if we're being honest, the damage was already done. At this point, it was about making a statement.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message.
Making sure those flightless buffoons realized that humans were not to be trifled with any longer. And by that time, the birds had earned the nickname the Feathered Fugitives and started to carry the myth with them that no army could defeat them. And even still to this day, Australia still has culling seasons to try and control the emu population. Now, I'm all about animal and ecological preservation, but enough is enough. So in Texas, we have aerial hog hunts. Now the hogs here are a huge nuisance. They tear through crops, damage property. They do a lot of stuff that actually harms the economy and harms people's property. So the state essentially allows year-round hunting specifically for these hogs. And a lot of them will actually take you up in a helicopter up in the sky and basically shoot them sitting at the sides of the helicopters. Now from what I understand, right now Australia doesn't allow the use of machine guns from helicopters or mounted trucks. However, technology and skill has evolved over time and might be wise to revisit the idea. I don't know, just putting it out there. Anyway, the Great Emu War became an instant punchline worldwide. Newspapers mocked it as proof that Mother Nature always wins. For Australians, it's a beloved national joke. A reminder that sometimes you could be absolutely armed to the teeth and have everything at your disposal and somehow still lose to a prehistoric bird with giant feathers and an attitude. And it's even become a symbol online too. TikTok and Reddit really love to revive this story once every so often when people talk about pointless wars. Oh, you thought this was pointless? Remember that time the Australian government used resources to fight birds? Basically, you can head over onto any social media platform, and over time, you're bound to see it pop up somewhere. I mean, there's entire video games, indie metal bands, even fake war reenactments that were inspired by the Great Emu War. And once every couple of years, someone floats the idea around Hollywood that they should make a movie about the Great Emu War.
I gotta figure out how to make money on this thing. It's simply too good.
Now, so far, there hasn't been any takers. Probably because there's no CGI that can top the idea of a real war being fought with real emus and a real government. But personally, I just don't think they're approaching it the right way. Imagine how much better the new Star Wars sequels would have been if they would have replaced the entire empire with a bunch of emus than that hot garbage they put out a couple years ago. Sorry, I'm a fan, but again, gotta draw the line somewhere. Guarantee you that ratings and demand would be through the roof. Give the people what they want already, Disney. So the Great Emu War shows how desperation, bad planning, and underestimating your enemy, yes, even if that enemy is a bird, can turn any small fight into a giant fiasco. Even Major Meredith himself later said that if the army had ever had to face emus again, they'd have to be prepared for a long, drawn-out campaign. So today, emus are a protective species even in Australia. You can see them all over the Outback and, to be honest with you, probably in your local zoo. Big, unbothered, and probably laughing in their emu bird language about the time the humans declared war on them and lost. So the next time someone tells you that humans have conquered the natural world, just feel free to remind them about that time that we fought a group of giant dumb birds. To some, freedom looks like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But to others, freedom might just look like letting the birds win. So if you like this one, drop a comment. I want some participation. Would you rather fight 10 horse-sized emus or 1,000 duck-sized emus? Genuinely looking forward to this one. Hit like, subscribe, and don't forget to come back for more of some of the strangest stories that history has to offer. I'm Trev, this is Times Crimes, and remember, the past doesn't rest easy. Sometimes it walks around on two legs, eats your wheat, and shrugs off machine guns.